So Mike, let's get to the Q&A.
Okay.
Now, I guess the first question I want to ask you is, we'll skip for now what I want to ask you about public safety in Proctor. Obviously, we talked in the introduction, you have a vast experience with that district, and also your new position is sort of related to some of the violence, or at least preventing same. But let's get to some other issues so that we have time to get into that. What's a good amount to have in the Utica surplus? Right now it's 15 million. Is that enough? Not too much? Should that be given back to other areas or even the people?
Well, currently I think the surplus that Utica has with the 15 million is currently, I think, working to successfully meet the needs of the people and the different departments that serves the people.
So you would add to it, or
I would
give people
keep it the
tax
same.
relief, or what?
I would probably keep it the same right now, depending on the wants and needs of the district, of the city of Utica. And as I get into the position a little bit more and become more familiarized with the wants and needs of the different departments, then I think I can make a better sound decision for all of the residents in the city of Utica.
Well, I mean, some candidates for mayor and some candidates for the common councils are saying, you know, we have a lot of needs in this city that haven't been met. For example, fire stations. Why not use some of that money, some of the surplus, to do that?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I have reached out to the chief, sorry, not the chief, the union president of the Utica
Carcone.
Tom Carcone, and he informed me how the Shepherd Place fire station is down 3 firemen and 1 truck. And South Utica is one of the highest paid tax areas in the city of Utica. And also, it's a vast area of land, the 3rd Ward. And it's kind of unfortunate, God forbid, if there was a fire, let's say, way on the south end of South Utica, the truck on Shepherd Place, it would take them a significant amount of time to
Well, you remember years ago we used to have a Woodlawn fire station.
Right down the block here, yeah.
Right.
So I think if you were going to first enhance or look at tweaking money for the different departments, I firmly am a firm believer as the public safety, specifically police and fire, would be the first 2.
But now, fire people are sort of exempt by the state, but there's been a controversy as to police living in the district. There's been some changes. What are your opinions? You're also a teacher. What would you require police and teachers, if they are part of the district or force, to live in the city of Utica?
No, I would not.
All right.
I think that, to get more specific,
sure.
First of all, anybody that goes into a profession as a young person, I think they have a passion for that position, and along with specifically, let's talk about a fireman for an example. I mean, a policeman for an example. These young kids that develop, that become policemen, they require them for the first 5 years that they maintain residency.
Well, now they do. They changed it, yeah.
Right, within the city of Utica. So my thing, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I get the idea why, so they can become and feel the heartbeat of the city a little bit more. But on the other hand, more times than not, a lot of these young fellas that are new policemen, they got young families.
So you're happy with the 5, or would you even reduce that?
I would reduce that.
Okay, so as soon as they come out of the academy, there's no requirement for them to live in the city.
Personally, I don't see that necessary. I really don't. And the other side of that is, like I was just alluding to, is the safety of their own personal family. I mean, Utica's a small city, and I mean, I've had kids come to my house that I taught in school, and they kind of found out where I lived. And God forbid if somebody ever went to policeman's house that they might have had an axe to grind. So, and or their kids, they attend Utica schools. So I don't think living in the city of Utica is going to qualify their job for them to do a better job as a police officer.
So you're not really in favor then of what they call community policing. So let's move on. Who are you supporting for mayor? You're on the Republican and conservative ballot?
Mike Brigano,
Okay.
I'm supporting him 100%.
Now, I'd like to know, one of your colleagues, of course, a Republican, Samantha Colosimo-Testa, has really railed against how the latest Common Council has conducted business. Do you see any changes you'd like to keep as to how the council does business? And if so, tell us. What?
I think when they got rid of the committees,
Yeah.
I think that
I think that's her main complaint, isn't it?
And I kind of agree with that, because there's an old saying, I guess collectively, if you have different issues, you develop committees and you could work more closely together with the different either representatives of the Common Council and or representatives within the city departments as well, to collectively come up identifying problems and coming up with solutions to those problems.
Now, we're looking at your lush vegetation here, and as we know, you live on a dead-end street. And a lot of people on this street, including yours truly, complain about the vagrants, the migrants that come out every night about 2, 3, and 4 o'clock. And they would be deer eating all the vegetation for people. Have you thought of, for example, Fayetteville has a culling policy. Have you ever thought of bringing something like that to the council and seeing it get passed?
So, be more specific on a what policy?
Culling. In other words, they have actually trained sharpshooters come in at night and they kill the deer to cull the deer so that there's not so many of them causing damage to the community.
Unfortunately, the deer are excessive. I call them rodents, and I mean
big ones.
And they're so adapted to our environment where we live with humans that they don't even react to us anymore in any way, shape, or form. However, I would not be in favor of having anybody come here and take out deer in that way.
How do we get rid of them?
That's a great question. To be honest with you, on a funny note,
right?
If I were to say to get rid of the deer, my wife would probably want to get rid of me, because
some people do feel that way.
Because she's a very passionate animal lover. So it's, you know, they are beautiful, but in a lot of respects they are I don't want to use the word dirty, but they do promote insects and bugs and ticks that aren't good.
Let's get to complete streets. I think you would agree that the latest coming out of complete streets by the Palmieri administration and Katie Aiello was a complete debacle. You agree with that?
It was a complete debacle.
Well, let me ask a further question, though.
Go ahead.
My question is, though, I remember going to meetings as a stakeholder when Palmieri first brought out this plan for Genesee Street. His first plan was a median in the middle with diagonal parking. So he seemed to have never given up on some kind of iteration of that. But my question goes specific, because I think people have spoken loud and clear, don't mess with Genesee Street. But my question is bike lanes in general. You know, many cities across this nation and also around the world are making it more public accessible to people in different modes of travel. First, are you against bike lanes in general? And if not, where would you put bike lanes in the city of Utica, and what kind of design would you use to enhance safety of not only the riders but of vehicles?
Good question. So I think to have a successful bike lane, would I be against them in general as a carte blanche? No, I don't think I would be against him just carte blanche, just saying, no, I don't believe in bike lanes. However, what I would do before you promote a bike lane and or look at the specific area that the bike lane would go into would have a complete and thorough traffic study, and also looking at the wants and needs of that specific neighborhood and how that bike lane would fit into the neighborhood and be complementary, and also promote the safety and well-being of not only the bikers but the walkers and the people that drive cars.
Yeah, because even people that are in favor of bike lanes, and I've been talking to individuals off the air, and we'll probably have interviews as well on this, but they say that the way the Complete Streets was laid out was a bike sandwich. In other words, you had parked cars, then the bike lane, and then a lane of traffic, so that the biker was sort of sandwiched in between
Parked cars and moving vehicles.
which is not the way it's done in most major cities. So I think if you want to bring out something like that, let's have a meeting, decide first what's safe, where it can be done, before you sort of put paint on the street. I think you would agree.
Things need to be well thought out, and to be most effective. And when you say be well thought out, getting back to the traffic study that was done down there, my thing was this, and I publicly said this on one of the radio shows, is that I think a traffic study, for them to say, well, we did a traffic study and we implemented the bike lanes. However, the traffic study was not done when you would have a full up and running hospital down there with many cars going to that specific location in different times of the day.
And a hospital soon to come.
And a hospital soon to come, with employees, with people going there, with emergency vehicles, so forth, and then withhold and sustain the business that are there. I just think that when they say they did a traffic study, I think they did the traffic study in words only, but I don't think they really did it with the mindfulness that they should have.
Well, I don't want to get into this because it's been so overdone, but that sounds a lot like the so-called study they did for Stewart. So let's just leave it at that. I think you've been clear on that as well. Let's get to one of the biggest issues I've been hearing from constituents in this ward, and that's what's going to be done with St. Elizabeth's. People are really worried, A, that downstate Democrats are going to say, once these people move out of the hospital to the new hospital, hey, there's a big place with lots of rooms, let's put the migrants there. And the second part of this question is, assuming you would be against that, I'm also wondering what your plans for redevelopment of that area would look like.
Two good questions, two very good, easy answers, in my opinion, because being obviously a South Utica resident, the number one answer to the first part of your question is no, I would not be in favor of any migrants coming to South Utica and or any portions of the city of Utica, because I think smart people learn from others' mistakes, and looking at what's happened in New York City, specifically at the Roosevelt Hotel, that, okay, so let's bring them to New York and let's house them in this hotel, but I don't think they really had the wherewithal and the knowledge and the I don't know what word I'm looking for, but the work to effectively maintain these people medically, food-wise, and just to maintain them. They didn't have any process involved. They just put them there and then let's figure it out later.
Well, that's because they're putting politics over reality.
And I hope I made sense with that. But
yeah.
that's
well, let's get to the next part. What's going to happen? What would you like to see happen at St. Elizabeth's, and what kind of feedback are you getting from residents?
Well, first of all, the residents around St. Elizabeth's, and I have talked to many of them. There's a forever green that buffers St. Elizabeth's
Yeah.
Hospital,
Hmm.
which is very, very important. And I think that those residents that actually they pay every year to withhold that forever green status that buffers the back, Ballantyne Brae, Douglas Crescent,
Hmm.
and so forth. Um, um, those residents need to be heard and respected and not encroached upon by any of the ideas that others might have for St. Elizabeth's Hospital. That's huge. As far as what I would like to see happen there, something that is very complementary to the existing neighborhood. Number one, personally, either my heart of hearts would be to raise St. Elizabeth's Hospital, develop some residential streets, and develop a residential community, like I said, complementary to the existing neighborhood within South Utica, and perhaps South Utica has an aging population. So maybe more specifically have some type of rooms and or availability for maybe athletics or even a little medical area there, center there that people could go to and have.
Well,
like-
what kind
like
of
an
housing
urgent
would you
care.
have there? Would it be
I would say-
condominiums? Would it be townhomes?
Well,
Would it be private homes?
I would
All
say,
of the above?
I would say in the residential street portion, I would suggest having some private homes, single family homes. Like I said, that would be complementary to the neighborhood. And if that, for some reason, wasn't viewed upon by the developers in a positive way, then the other would be perhaps having St. Elizabeth's transformed and or modified to have somewhat of a condominium type that also would be complementary to the neighborhood. But I want to bring out one point that actually my wife brought it out to me because if they did decide to raise St. Elizabeth's, and there's one thing that I've never heard really many people talk about, or if I did, it crossed my mind, but there's a beautiful chapel within St. Elizabeth's Hospital.
There is.
So what would happen to that chapel and all of the and on all of that within the hospital?
Well, of course, your wife is thinking of that because she taught at Lord's a long time,
For
right?
31 years she taught religious education. But that would be that.
Well, my thoughts, though, is I was kind of surprised at this, that they were going to keep the College of Nursing, which I think is a good thing. But as well as, I would like it mixed use, young professionals, an older population of people who, as I say, want to downsize. It may be me in a few,
it might be me.
in a few short years. But I'd like to also see, in conjunction with that School of Nursing, some kind of small assisted living facility as well that could take advantage of those resources right at the College of Nursing. Because let's face it, all these people are short-staffed. So it would be a natural progression for the students to get experience, maybe a little pay, and also for those residents to get good care.
And meet the needs of the
Right.
residents.
What do you think about that idea?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
And it would be complementary in meeting the needs of the residents,
Right.
the nursing students, the nursing school, and the whole community that would be developed there.
Now, the other big issue that I've heard is a constant, especially more towards one of the properties I own, and that is the flooding in this district, namely from this Coit Creek, and also coming down from Oneida Street, which is informally called Helix Ravine. But let's talk about Coit Creek, because where Brookline meets Sunnyside Drive, if you look over to the creek, you'll see about 3 foot high of boulders that have accumulated over the years. Now what happens is, of course, that's 3 feet higher that the creek is going to be. And when you talk to our former council person, soon to be former council person, and DEC officials and engineering department, they say, oh, well, you can't dredge that because then you get it into a smaller channel and you're going to have more flooding problems. But I think what everybody wants is not to dig a narrower channel, but just get all the wood and the boulders out of there so that it's more conducive to non-flooding in the future. Do you agree with that?
Well, the Sequoia Creek, there has been an inter-municipality commission developed.
Right, Sequoia Creek Basin, yeah.
Right, that deals with all the different municipalities that Sequoia Creek goes through. And I have been in conversation with David Glenn, who's the chairperson of...
I've interviewed him many times.
David's a great guy. And he has informed me, I mean, well, they are on top of that on a regular basis, and they do meet. Actually, they're meeting again this month to discuss some of the current issues and or things that have surfaced for them to address on an ongoing basis.
But I don't think they've met their responsibilities, or the city hasn't met their responsibilities, especially in that area that I reference, because they always say that, oh yeah, we'll do it, but it never gets done. I mean, why not take care of that area?
I totally agree.
But how do you get it done as a council person?
Well, you know what? When I was going back to your initial questions, and this is from my heart of hearts. When I first became a teacher, a young 22-year-old kid, and my administrator, my superior, said to me, he says, let me give you some advice. He says, you get what you inspect, not what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
So if you expect somebody to do something, it may not ever get done. But if you inspect what you're asking others to do, perhaps it will get done in a more timely fashion to better meet the needs of everyone in the community, not just the needs of a few.
All right, so let's review a little here. In your introduction video, and I urge people to watch that as well, you told us about your extensive dealings with the Utica School District for 40 years as a special ed teacher, and now your title is what again?
A superintendent hearing officer.
Okay, so that's what I want to talk to now. You can see what area I'm going. Public safety and crime. Obviously a huge problem in the city of Utica. I think you would agree. Probably getting worse. I think we can throw in homelessness as well, the same thing. How would you address these problems in the city?
Well, it's a good question. Specifically, what problem? The homelessness?
Well, you could take homelessness, but first of all, why don't you handle public safety? I mean, well, we have more and more crimes, including what happened at Proctor recently.
That's kind of a great question, and I think I got an appropriate answer for that. Oddly enough, I did do a ride-along with the UPD about a month and a half ago, and unfortunately, on my ride-along there in the evening, about 10:30 at night, there was a shooting of a juvenile that was shot in the upper rib cage area on the corners of, it was in a West Utica community, and there he is when we got to the scene, lining the road, and juveniles were shooting at each other. I'm sure it was, I don't want to use the word gang related, but perhaps a group of individual juveniles that have combative tendencies towards each other. So, so talking with some of the UPD and their wants and needs, the juvenile division of the Utica Police Department, according to what I've been told, only has 3 officers that deal with that particular unit. So it's kind of ironic to me that a lot of these shootings and a lot of the crimes, i.e. what just went over in the parking lot of Proctor High School after the football game, that was all juvenile related crime.
So maybe take some of that $15 million and expand that part of the police department?
Or the other, right, but in the way that would work, knowing the hierarchy of things, the way I just kind of learned things through my own life and how the progression of jobs are, you would probably want to take some of your more experienced patrolmen from the streets, assign them to the juvenile division, and then with the new and upcoming patrolmen, obviously.
Doing what though? What specifically would they be doing
Well, I think
to enhance public safety?
in the juvenile division.
Yeah.
Well, I think
You'd have these new officers now. You're adding officers, so obviously you can expand the way you do things or what you do. What would you have them do?
I think when you have more officers that would be complementary to a specific age group of children, kids that deal with gun violence and violence, I think that you would have to pretty much go as for your investigative type research and things, go more into the whys and the hows of how these things are happening, and if things are happening, sometimes.
But you work for the Utica School District. How do you see the evolution of these kids' demise?
How do I see it?
Yeah.
Truthfully, it's a tough question, but
I mean, it seems to me we're not probably doing enough at the school level as well to catch this. Maybe even the elementary school level to catch these kinds of problems.
This is what I see. I see in the city of Utica itself, there's a lot of great ancillary services that are involved to serve the youth of our community, such as ICANN. There's that new program out there. It's called SNUG, which is gun spelled backwards. And like I said, there's a lot of different agencies out there that work with addressing either the needs of the different kids that are out there. So I think rather than each spinning their wheels and their own little areas, I think sometimes it would be good, in my opinion, if they collectively and cooperatively came together to be more of a force to...
Is that possibly within the scope of your job to maybe facilitate that?
In my job?
Yeah.
In the school district?
Yeah. No, it wouldn't be. Okay. Let's get to an issue that I like to bring up about homelessness. It sort of ebbs and flows. And what really can be done about people that don't want to go to a shelter? Because I think you would agree that there are lots of places for these people to go, but they don't want to go because they don't think it's the right place for them. How do you, what do you do with these people that don't want to get off the street?
I walk my dog every morning, and when you're walking down Genesee Street at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, I saw one individual in a wheelchair just parked on the side of the road, nodded out, whatever that particular person was doing. Obviously that person doesn't want to go to a shelter. Others sleeping in bus stops down by the old St. Joseph's nursing home. I mean, how do you entice them to get to shelters? I think a lot of that, truthfully, I think homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness, unfortunately, all go hand in hand. And I think to address homelessness, like I said, I think you would have to provide different services for them to make them feel like their wants or their needs are being met.
Well, see, here's the problem. You remember years.
It's a huge problem.
You remember years ago that the pendulum swung the other way. In other words, they were locking people up for mental illness that really shouldn't have been locked up. They could have been given medication and been productive members of society.
Agreed.
But now it's gone the other way with our policing, arrest them, let them back out, commit another crime, don't get people off the streets. To me, this is why I couldn't get elected anything, Mike. I think that you have to go back to some sort of form that if people don't want to go, you have to pick them up and make them go to a facility so that they could get some form of treatment that they can be safe and the community can be safe.
Unfortunately, those facilities don't really exist anymore.
Yeah, that's it.
Because they've been deinstitutionalized.
Yeah, it would take the state legislature to make those kind of changes.
But it is definitely an ongoing problem that I think is not plaguing. It plagues all parts of Utica. I mean, everybody says, "Oh, everybody always focuses, well, Oneida Square, Oneida Square, Oneida Square." Like I said, one morning I was walking the dog and there was somebody standing at the ATM machine just in the driveway area on Higbee Road and by the bank over there.
Okay, Adirondack Bank.
Adirondack Bank, waiting there after you went through the ATM.
Yeah, great.
You drive out, but this was like 6:30 in the morning.
Okay.
So I mean.
Well, let's move on to our last couple of questions and give you the opportunity. Are there any other issues that you think are important to you and the citizens that you'd like to tackle during your first year as Common Council member?
I think that the biggest thing of my ideology, of what I think would perhaps make me a very electable official, is I would like to see, if I were elected, to have some type of diverse group of citizens throughout South Utica meet perhaps on a monthly basis, as needed basis, every couple of months, and they would bring to the table the specific needs of that area, of their neighborhoods within South Utica.
How would that differ from SUNA?
How would that differ from SUNA? I think SUNA, if you've been to those meetings.
Yeah. I'll be there this Monday recording your debate.
How does that differ from SUNA? As you know, when there's a big...
We should say that, South Utica Neighborhood Association. Right.
When there's a big event, many people come.
Right.
But when things are just mulling along in our little community of South Utica, it's probably the same 15 people that go there. Mm-hmm. And things are talked about.
Used to be better attendance when it was at Lord's.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, South Utica is a big community, so I would like to see people in the group, the diverse group that I would have put together, and just approach me, say, hey, Mike, I want to be part of the group and discuss the different issues. Like I said, what goes on Woodlawn Ave East may not be the same thing that's going on Emerson Ave.
Do you see this like a monthly meeting, or how do you foresee this?
As needed, monthly, by every couple of months.
And about how many people would be a part of this?
You know what? I sometimes more is not, less is more. I don't have a number, but okay. The number of people I would want to see would be people that would engage into good, sound decision-making skills that would represent their local neighborhood and effectively address the needs of the neighborhood.
Now, for people clamoring more information about Mike Brigano, where can they get it? Do you have a Facebook page or social media?
I do have a personal Facebook page, and then I have elect Mike Brigano for South Utica Common Council.
Say that again, slow for people. Is that the name of the Facebook page?
Yes, and I do have my own personal.
Well, let's use
the political page.
Yeah, please.
Friends of Michael Brigano.
Okay, and anything else you'd want to say?
And on my palm cards that you might have gotten on your door or wedged between a mailbox or something like that, I have my email address and my phone number.
Well, why don't you give the email address right now?
It's Michael Brigano, real simple, at yahoo.com.
Okay, Mike Brigano, thanks for the time and good luck.
Thank you.